Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take complex information, boil it down, and hopefully give you some real insights, make you genuinely curious.
That's the goal.
Today, we are diving deep into Gildan's 2024 ESG report. That's environmental, social, and governance.
Right.
And this isn't just, some dry corporate document. It's really a fascinating look inside a huge global apparel company and how they're trying to operate more responsibly. Our mission today is really to pull out the key takeaways. How does a company this big actually embed ESG across everything it does? And especially, we want to look at their impact and investments in communities, particularly in Central America.
Yeah, what's really illuminating here, I think, is how detailed this report is. It's independently verified, gives you a look at their whole vertically integrated model.
Vertically integrated, okay, we'll get into that.
Yeah, and you see the actual impacts on the environment, on their 50,000 employees, the communities. We're going to try and connect those dots for you.
So you get a clearer picture.
Exactly. What responsible manufacturing can actually look like on the ground, especially in those Central American hubs where they have such a large presence.
Okay, let's maybe start with the basics. Gildan, who are they? I mean, lots of us probably have their stuff and don't even know it.
Very likely. They make everyday basic apparel. So think T-shirts, activewear, underwear, socks, big stuff.
And the scale. The report mentions numbers.
Huge scale. 2024 net sales were, $3.27 billion, operating in 12 countries. And, around 50,000 employees globally.
50,000? That's massive. A huge global footprint.
It really is. And a key part of their whole operation, especially for ESG, is that vertical integration you mentioned.
Right. Break that down for us. What does that mean practically?
It means they control pretty much the entire process, from spinning the yarn, literally starting with raw cotton, all the way through cutting, sewing, finishing the garments, even distributing them.
Wow. Okay, so not just designing and outsourcing?
No. Very hands-on. And this gives them incredible oversight, not just for efficiency or avoiding supply chain problems, but real control over quality, costs, and crucially, their social and environmental performance, step by step.
Okay, so that level of control, how does that directly connect to their sustainability goals? It feels like a massive advantage if you want to actually implement changes.
You've nailed it. It's fundamental. This vertical integration, it's the foundation for their whole making apparel better vision. And their main strategy, they call it Gildan Sustainable Growth, or GSG.
GSG, okay.
And ESG isn't just like a side project. It's one of their three main strategic pillars, right up there with expanding capacity and innovation.
So it's core to the business.
Absolutely. And their main manufacturing hubs, textiles, sewing, socks, they're clustered geographically. The biggest one, right there in Central America. Honduras and Nicaragua specifically. They also have big operations in the Caribbean, Bangladesh, and they do yarn spinning back in the U.S. But Central America is huge. Honduras alone, over 16,000 workers, highly trained workers too.
16,000 in just one country.
Yeah. And because they own and operate these facilities, they can directly implement new sustainable tech and processes across the whole chain. They're not just asking suppliers to do it. They're doing it themselves.
That direct control. It must make a huge difference when we talk about the environment. Let's dig into that. The report talks a lot about environmental stewardship, circularity. What's standing out there?
Well, if you look at the apparel industry generally, environmental risks are, a big deal. Climate change, water use, biodiversity loss. It's a resource-intensive sector.
Right.
So Gildan's approach seems focused on mitigating these with really specific targets, measurable targets. In significant investments, it's about rethinking production.
Okay, give us some specifics from 2024. Climate change.
Yeah, they've made progress. They cut their absolute Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. That's their direct operations and energy use by 16.8% compared to their 2018 baseline.
16.8%, yeah.
Which brings the total down to about 626,000 tons of CO2 equivalent. And they also finished a 3-year program engaging their supply chain on Scope 3 emissions.
Scope 3, that's always the tricky one, the indirect stuff.
Exactly. It's notoriously hard to tackle.
Yeah.
So how are they doing it? The report points to ongoing investment in energy efficiency projects, better energy management systems, using more low-carbon energy like biomass.
Biomass, okay.
Yeah. And for example, in Bangladesh, they put in solar panels expected to cover about 15% of one site's energy needs. So it's about strategic investments in cleaner energy and just using less.
Makes sense. And water. Always a huge issue in textiles and dyeing.
A massive issue. And here, their numbers are pretty impressive. They cut their water intensity, that's water per kilogram of product, by 25.2% against that same 2018 baseline.
25%, wow.
Yeah, and they actually beat their target of 20% reduction and hit it early.
How? What are they doing differently?
It's a mix of things. Innovative processes, like they're reusing water in the dyeing process in Honduras. They have a new resource-conserving process in textile plants in Honduras, the Dominican Republic, and Bangladesh.
Okay.
That one alone saves something like 327,000 cubic meters of water in just the Central American and Caribbean sites. Plus, they scaled up processed water reuse in Honduras and the DR, saving another almost 89,000 cubic meters.
So really focusing on reuse and efficiency.
Exactly, being smarter with every drop, which is vital in regions that might face water stress.
Yeah.
And they have this special dyeing process too, Pigment Pura, for their Comfort Colors brand.
Mm-hmm.
It apparently uses on average 3 times less water and less energy than traditional methods. And it goes beyond the factory too. They partner with local groups like the Santo Domingo Water Fund in the DR and the Alliance for Water Security in Honduras to protect local water basins.
So it's a broader view of water stewardship.
Yeah, it seems quite holistic.
Okay, and staying with resources. Circularity, that's a big buzzword. What are they doing there?
They seem to be taking it seriously. They're aiming for 100% sustainable cotton by the end of 2025.
Ambitious. Where are they now?
They hit 77.3% in 2024, which they say is more than double the previous year. So, good progress. And zero manufacturing waste to landfill by 2027.
Zero waste.
That's the goal, and they're already super close. In 2024, only 0.92% of their manufacturing waste went to landfill.
Less than 1%. That's incredible.
It really is. They're also looking at consumer recycling, like a sock recycling program with TerraCycle for their Goldie Toby brand. Collected over 190,000 used socks last year.
Closing the loop.
Trying to. And they got this award too, Reprevie Champions of Sustainability. Because they use Reprevie recycled yarns, they've apparently helped divert like 94 million plastic bottles from waste since 2017.
Wow. So using recycled materials, reducing waste, trying to enable consumer recycling?
Yeah, and it's comprehensive. All their recycled polyester is Global Recycled Standard certified. They're even experimenting with turning their own manufacturing scrap, the leftover cotton bits, into new recycled cotton for their own products.
Okay, that's genuinely circular thinking, using their own waste as a resource.
Exactly. It really shows embedding circularity from design all the way through. It connects back to those conservation efforts too. It's seeing waste differently.
Okay, let's shift gears. From the environmental to the social side. The people aspect. 50,000 employees globally. How does a company this big ensure fair treatment, especially across diverse places like Central America?
That is the core question, isn't it? And their report lays out a pretty robust framework. Human rights, ethical labor. Every new employee gets training on their code of conduct, code of ethics. That's standard.
Standard, but important.
Crucial. And they've rolled out this app, the Open Worker Line or OWL app, to 75% of their manufacturing sites.
OWL app.
Yeah. Lets workers anonymously report concerns using their phones. Gives them a direct, confidential channel.
That seems like a potentially powerful tool for workers.
It could be. And critically, the report states 0 incidents of child labor found in their operations in 2024, which is obviously fundamental.
Absolutely fundamental. What about wages?
They mentioned they're reviewing their living wage definition against global standards. And they're doing a new socioeconomic survey next year across the DR, Honduras, and Nicaragua. The goal seems to be ensuring wages allow a decent standard of living, not just meeting the legal minimum.
Living wage is a complex topic.
It is. And it's worth noting, too, about 54% of their global workforce is covered by collective bargaining agreements. So significant union presence and worker representation.
Okay. Beyond wages and codes of conduct, what about day-to-day well-being, especially in regions where, say, healthcare access might be limited?
This is where those on-site clinics come in. They operate fully equipped medical clinics right at their manufacturing plants in Bangladesh, the DR, Honduras, Nicaragua.
Fully equipped, so not just basic first aid.
Apparently not. 2 clinics in Honduras actually got recognition from the Honduran Social Security Institute for outstanding health initiatives. That suggests a pretty high standard of care.
That's really significant, providing healthcare directly.
Yeah, it's preventive care, treatment, all accessible right there. It's a huge benefit. They also run annual health fairs in Honduras Free Services for over 6,500 employees and families in 2024.
Wow.
And they're tackling tough social issues, too. Training employees through a program called Empadera with World Vision in Central America and the Doriar.
Empodera.
It helps staff identify and refer colleagues who might be victims of domestic violence. It shows a deeper commitment to worker welfare beyond just the factory floor.
That's a proactive, really important step. What about skills and development? Are they investing in training?
Massively. Over 3.9 million training hours globally in 2024.
3.9 million hours.
Yeah. Building all sorts of skills, leadership, technical know-how, interpersonal skills. They have specific programs, like one in the DR, to train operations staff for supervisor roles, promoting from within.
Career paths.
Exactly. And mentorship programs launched in Honduras and Nicaragua. It's not just about productivity. It seems aimed at personal and professional growth, which boosts the whole region economically, too.
So let's connect these threads. We see the environmental work, the employee focus. What does this all add up to for the communities, especially in Central America, where they have such a big footprint?
Right. This is where you see the impact beyond their own workforce.
Yeah.
In 2024, they put over $2.8 million into community investment. Plus, employees volunteered nearly 39,000 hours.
Okay, where is that money and time going?
They focus it strategically. Quality education, good health, and protecting resources. And it seems to be about sustained partnerships, not just one-off checks.
Let's get specific, especially for our listeners interested in the Central American impact. Honduras, their biggest hub. What's happening there?
They have an ongoing partnership with World Vision Honduras. It's called the Childhood Education and Transformation Program.
Okay.
Since 2023, it's helped 29 schools create disaster risk reduction plans, reached over 7,700 kids with related training, things like earthquake drills, safety planning, really practical stuff.
That sounds incredibly valuable in that region.
Yeah, Gildan's put over $800,000 into it, and World Vision Honduras actually named them an outstanding strategic partner, so it seems like a meaningful collaboration.
And elsewhere in the region, Dominican Republic, Nicaragua.
Similar stories. In the DR, that $40,000 partnership with the Santo Domingo Water Fund is helping conserve the Ozama River Basin. Gildan volunteers have planted over 12,000 trees there in just 2 years.
12,000 trees. Tangible impact.
Absolutely. In Nicaragua, you had over 400 employees volunteering 3,000 hours planting trees and food plants. They have a program called Soda Harvest, planted over 45,000 plants since 2016.
Wow.
So these are real hands-on investments, improving the environment, supporting local health, education, and they also step up in crises, like donating lots of apparel in Honduras after Tropical Storm Sarah hit.
Okay, so we have environment, social, but what holds it all together? Governance. How do they ensure these efforts are real, sustained, and there's accountability?
Good governance is crucial, right? Otherwise, they can just be talk. What's interesting here is the oversight structure. Their board of directors monitors ESG progress.
The board itself?
Yes, and they have a specific committee, the Corporate Governance and Social Responsibility Committee, overseeing policies on environment, human rights, community stuff. And here's a key thing. Some ESG targets, like cutting greenhouse gases and hitting circularity goals, are actually linked to executive pay.
Ah, okay. That definitely creates accountability, linking pay to ESG outcomes.
It's a powerful incentive for leadership to take it seriously.
And transparency. How do they report this?
They seem pretty open. High ethical standards are stressed. 100% of relevant staff did annual compliance certifications. They have an ethics hotline for reporting issues. And importantly, they reported no material cybersecurity breaches or customer privacy complaints in 2024.
That's good to hear. But in general, there's so much information out there and worries about greenwashing. How does their reporting build trust?
That's a fair question. They make a point of aligning their report with recognized standards, GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative, and SAZB, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board.
Okay, recognized frameworks.
Right. And crucially, they use third parties for assurance on key environmental data and independent verification for their community investment numbers. That external validation is key. It's not just them saying they did well, someone else checked the figures. It builds credibility.
So, wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for you, our listener? We've gone deep into Gildan's 2024 ESG report. We've seen their efforts to, as they say, make apparel better, reducing environmental impact, water, energy, waste, circularity, investing really significantly in their workforce and communities, especially in Central America. It feels like more than just box ticking.
I think so. It shows how a huge vertically integrated manufacturer can embed ESG deeply into its operations. It challenges that old idea that large-scale manufacturing has to be inherently damaging.
It suggests it can be a force for positive change if done right.
Exactly. This deep dive really underscores how Corporate responsibility is evolving. It's not just compliance anymore. It's about strategic integration, weaving social and environmental goals into the actual business model. And you see the direct impact on people, on ecosystems.
It really does make you think. If a company this big in a complex industry like apparel can demonstrate these kinds of verified ESG results, what does that mean for other sectors, other companies you interact with every day? And maybe more personally, what role do our choices as consumers play in encouraging this kind of deep, responsible change across the board?
That's definitely something worth pondering.
Something to chew on until our next deep dive.